Hello, Anna Sabramowitz here from eLearner Engaged. I've got another reflection video for you today. Okay, so first, let me just tell you, I know you're probably just holding your breath to find out how my citrus fruit production is going. Wait till you check this out. Hold on. Okay. I don't know if you can tell. These are actually, I thought these were limes. They're going to be oranges, which terrifies me. But hey, maybe one day. Still smell awesome though. Okay, only 4 more months until I have a tiny orange. So we'll see how that works. Okay. All right, so scenario design course. How are things progressing? Things are progressing okay. I feel like there needs to be a lot more people. The people that are taking my course are professionals, and a lot of the work I feel they're doing it on their own time. And I speak from experience. When you have a full-time job and you're slammed busy, to find time to devote to yourself is very, very difficult. What I actually heard from one of the participants in the course is that their company gives them Friday afternoons to learn. Wow, that's super awesome. Kudos to you. And that's a great company to work at, I think, that values you enough that every week they give you time to just learn. That's fantastic. And what a great way to finish the week, right? I love that. I'd love to work there. One of the other things is that scenarios are starting to come in, which is great because now I can see when you finally see the product, then you can start saying, okay, so here's some things that worked well. Okay, so that part of the lesson is well supported. But here's some things that could be improved. How can I work that back into a tip sheet or some sort of an example that would be a good indication of how to make this work better for somebody. And the other thing that I'm working on as well is that I created a lot of templates, but they've been usable only in the context of a customer, right, or a client. And so what's happened is they have proprietary information and I can't really share them. However, the model itself is still very appropriate and useful in the scenario context. So my next challenge over the next couple of weeks is going to take the models that I know have worked well for our clients that are a scenario type of interaction, come up with scenarios that would work in there that would be very applicable to some of the work that my students are doing so that they could see the model used in several ways in several different contexts. And the only thing that changes really is the context, and the model still works. And I think that's the beauty of seeing all these examples. So I'm going to work very hard to make sure that everything is not just a screenshot of something that, oh, these people did this well, because I know that's kind of frustrating because, I mean, I get emails from people saying, can I get the Articulate Storyline file from you? And I understand why they're asking is because they actually haven't been able to just see the interaction from beginning to end, because then they would easily be able to say, I can build that. That's not a problem. But I'm giving them only a screenshot. So what I want in this course is for people to get a feel for what the model is, so that regardless of their software, they're not saying I have to build this in Storyline, or I have to build this in Zebra's apps, or I have to build this in, it doesn't matter. If you have a model and it works well, you can even make it work on paper. And I'm not saying that all of these will, but that's one of the things that I always think about is, would this work even in an email environment where, consider this, you can actually set this up where you ask somebody a scenario question and you give them some options, and based on their reply, they get auto feedback emailed a consequence and then some more questions, and then that leads to a different scenario. So you actually could make that work in an email client, in an email place. I just have to think about how to do that, because I think it would work. And I feel like it would also be kind of interesting delay those responses so that people can anticipate what the solution would be, what the consequence would be. Okay, my mastermind, you know how I come up with crazy ideas. You'll see that. The other thing that was cool, interesting, and I'll see how it's working because I need more data, of course, is that when I published the videos, my explanation videos for the course, I overlaid them with questions. And I did this using Vizia. And Vizia is a plugin for the course platform that I'm using, which is teachable.com. And so what I tried to do, and I've launched other courses before, and I found that I've had reflection questions, but because of the limited functionality or interaction capacity of, let's say I was using like a software like Vizia, I was just embedding the videos, I didn't have anything overlaid. I was making the reflection question simply a long slide where the video would continue playing, but there would be a question and the person would have a chance to answer it, and then I'd come back and say, okay, so did you think this or did you think that? But with Vizia, what you're able to do is you're actually able to take the video, which is published on YouTube, overlay questions, different kinds of questions at different points, calls to action, polls, multiple choice questions like quiz questions, also just reflection questions, which are long form. And what's cool is then you can gather all that data into a worksheet or a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet that's then tagged and attached permanently to that video. And all this is free, by the way. It's wonderful. And so for the first time, somebody actually mentioned that they really enjoyed that aspect. So I'm going to be more proactive in finding out, because people are answering the questions, but you can also skip them. So here's the challenge to yourself as, you know, as the designer, is to think about the questions, one, from the perspective of, yeah, I want to gather this data. That's one motivation. You know, are people getting it? Are they engaged in the process? Two, am I engaging them in the right way at the right time? Because there could be, and I feel like I may have done this in the very beginning, there could be an overindulgence in questions. So you might be stopping it and saying, hey, can I ask you this? But if the learner is not seeing the value, or if you're making it almost too cumbersome for them to answer, then they won't, and they'll skip the question. So it's almost like finding the right balance between how many questions can you ask without pissing them off? How many questions can you ask that will help them apply? And what types of questions can be structured so that you're not always asking for a long form answer, but still creating questions that generate valuable data for you and make the learner think at the same time. So it's a really cool experiment, and I'm going to keep on experimenting and tweaking it as I go through each videos to see if there's a strategy there that I could then extract and actually share with everybody, because I think it would be very important, especially because I consider video is still passive. If there's a really easy way for you to engage with people and still make that a meaningful experience, why not, right? So I'll share that once I've got more data. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I find myself, I don't know if you guys, if you subscribed to Learning Experience Friday, which I send out every week with tools and tips and things that I've learned along basically that week, right? It forces me to actually read all the bookmark stuff that I put on on my to-do read later, right? So one of the things that I find myself constantly using, and tell me if you use something like this. I think other people use a different software, but what I find is sometimes easier to just, when you're having a problem or where you're trying to explain something, I find it's much easier to just do a screenshot and then point a bunch of stuff to it and then write a bunch of annotated basically. But I like annotation to be juicy and huge and blatant and crisp. And so I use Sketch. And what I like is that I also use Evernote for capturing random ideas. Basically, Evernote I use as a kind of a bucket that then I sort and I apply the GTD method to make sure that the things that I'm focusing on are the things I should be focusing on. And that all those little naggy things like, make sure to remember to send a thank you note to this person, that doesn't eat up my mind's energy. I can capture it somewhere. It's a reliable place to capture it. And then what happens is my mind is free to focus on the task at hand. So what's neat is that Sketch and Evernote work together, so that if I ever annotate something or I explain something to somebody and I send it to them, Sketch mock-ups are captured in my Evernote account. And you know what? I've started revisiting them and thinking, hey, this is actually really handy. I could just use this again. So it's a wonderful way to capture images, capture interactions, capture common errors that people make those little templates, and then it's saved forever, and then you can just reuse it whenever it comes up. So, yeah. Oh, and I wanted to do a special shout out. I have this student who is going through one of my courses. It's the 9 lesson email strategy on how to engage your audiences through e-learning, right? And one of the students is Gina, and she has been. She told me she's been looking at my stuff for a while, and it's great because sometimes people are really ready to engage and really ready to learn. What they do is they start really sending you great feedback. And so what happened is Gina enrolled in my course, which is just an email course. You get a lesson every day, and she started just giving me her ideas, giving me her feedback and her experience. And it makes me so happy because that means that it's resonating, but also that there's, even at where I'm at, I can still learn to tweak those steps. I think you never end up finalizing anything. So even my steps to the 9 engagement, I'm getting now real contextual feedback from people who are saying, well, I'm in academia, so I have a different perspective, or I'm in the corporate world, but I can see, now that a lot of people make those transitions, they can say, you know what, I can actually see how I can apply this and how I can leverage this learning that I've done here. Or they'll reply to one of my lessons and say, I don't know how exactly I would apply this in this setting, but in this setting, I could see that. So then that just helps me reconsider, are my examples specific enough and varied enough to accommodate the needs of instructional designers, whether they're in a corporate world and trying to achieve corporate business tasks, or an academic world where they're also trying to achieve maybe more skills and employability oriented type tasks. And basically, essential skills like collaboration, leadership, all those other things, which I think are across the board things we want to develop in our learners. So that was my I had a long weekend and it was fantastic. I got a bit of a tan, like tiny amount of a tan. And next weekend I get to participate in an awesome food and wine festival. So I'm excited about that. And you probably, if you followed my Instagram or check out Facebook, you'll probably see some fabulous pictures because at this food and wine festival where it happens, everybody dresses up in fancy hats and wears lipstick and things like that. So it will be fun. It'll be a fun event. Okay. Have a wonderful evening, day, whatever is wherever you are. And if you have any questions, suggestions, ideas, you want to shoot something, off me and have another pair of eyes, look at something you're working on, don't hesitate to get in touch. Anna at eLearnerEngaged, or just leave a message below the video and I will respond because I usually do. So take care, friend.